Our building automation system has a lot of information, but it takes a human to look at those trends or set up the trends within the system and then go back and see what those patterns are and see where things are beyond threshold that they shouldn't be.
So welcome everybody to the Ship You Wish Your Building Did podcast. And today we're talking about the GSA, that's the General Service Administration's Smart Building Strategy. And they've been connecting building management systems to a cloud-based platform, saving up to $33 million in taxpayer dollars annually. Anyone interested in delivering smart building projects at scale will find this podcast super interesting. So I really want to welcome Anna Rawson to the podcast. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Jim. Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome, and really interested today to talk about your work you've been doing at the GSA. So I think best place to start, please tell us what the GSA is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. So the General Services Administration, GSA, is responsible for three things. First, managing the federal real estate through the Public Building Service, which is the segment of the GSA that I work for. Also providing procurement services to federal agencies through the Federal Acquisition Service and providing IT solutions to federal agencies. So the Public Building Service, my particular portion of the GSA, we are the landlord for the civilian federal government. And so we manage properties and maintain properties throughout the United States. So housing about 1.1 million employees, working in 50 federal agencies and about 400 bureaus. And that consists of about 8,400 facilities in over 2,200 communities throughout the United States and U.S. territories.
Wow, okay, so a massive portfolio, both in terms of like geography and types of buildings. So I mean, roughly like what you must have a very mixed portfolio. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So our portfolio really consists of about 70% that's general purpose office space and about 30% that's special purpose office space. So we manage land ports of entry, courthouses, laboratories, and it also consists of about 481 historic properties. So that in itself makes it a unique portfolio to manage, especially given the changing climate of technology and other business drivers.
Right, exactly. So I assume you must be dealing with lots of kind of different types of technology, legacy equipment, newer technology. How does that work with you guys?
Right. Exactly. So my team specifically is focused mainly on our own portfolio. So we have 370 million square feet overall, and about half of that is in our own portfolio, and the other half we lease from the commercial market. And so it does represent a number of different manufacturers, about 250 manufacturers overall. We have a large portion of our inventory that we brought onto the GSA network in the early 2000s, and that's been really where we've been leaning since the early 2000s, is to have a mindset of measuring, managing, and improving through having remote visibility to our systems. First starting with advanced metering and then progressing to our building automation systems, which then allowed for us to integrate them to our fault detection and diagnostic system of GSAlink.
Okay, and then so let's talk specifically about these kind of projects you've been working on. I mean, you've mentioned a little bit about it then, like maybe we can start perhaps on your journey or the GSA's journey that you've been on. Like when did you first get started or get serious about, smart building technology and adapting it at scale?
No, it's been a neat ride with GSA. So I serve as the Chief Facility Technology Officer, the Director of Facility Technology Innovation for the Public Building Service out of the Office of Facilities Management. I joke that I'm about to turn 21 in January. I've been with GSA for many years now.
Wow.
I first started in one of our regional offices in Atlanta, which is where I live. And my journey really began as an engineer. I'm a co-op student from Georgia Tech, engineering background, and later got my MBA. And what I was able to do early in my career was, as an engineer, work on bringing on our first advanced meters onto our GSA network. So around 2003, we brought on our first advanced meter, separate from the utility meter, owner meter, collecting data. And they were just like me. There were many other ONAs, other engineers in the rest of GSA, bringing on first meters onto the GSA network. We now have about 2,300 meters connected, and that's growing. And this was really driven at that time based on a number of different federal mandates that really first focused on electric meters, then later gas and water meters. But fast forward to today, that paved the way for building automation systems, which I also was an engineer at that time working on bringing the first building automation systems onto the GSA network, which building automation systems, as you know, control our HVAC, lighting, and other building monitoring control systems. So we integrated our first BAS back in 2008. And again, just like the connections and working heavily with our IT partners on our advanced meters, working with our building automation systems, that provided the opportunity and foundation to set the path for smart buildings, really focused on open protocol systems, converged networks, normalized and secure data, secure system platform. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you guys talk about the GSAlink platform, is that right?
Yes, that's right. So we launched GSAlink in 2013. So we integrated our first building automation system in 2008. And it wasn't too long after that that we then started our smart buildings journey, continued our smart buildings journey from connecting to then integrating into analytics. 2013, we were able to launch GSAlink. We started it off as a Fast 50, identifying our first 50 buildings that would be integrated to the platform. And it's grown since then to 114 buildings, and we're actually in the process of integrating an additional 16 this year or currently. And we've really refined the processes to allow for integration of more buildings now at this point based on our contractual agreement.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you've started, you've grown this over time. Maybe we can start with, you mentioned the first time it was 50 buildings you connected to this platform. And this is an analytics platform, right? Yeah. And so maybe
exactly. So it's a fault detection diagnostic system. So basically what it does is our building automation system has a lot of information, but it takes a human to look at those trends or set up the trends within the system and then go back and see what those patterns are and see where things are beyond threshold that they shouldn't be. It takes time is the translation. So a fault detection and diagnostic system allows for the system itself to run those analytics. So we have about 60 or so rules, we call them rules, that when they are broken, they become sparks. So it becomes a spark in the system and it generates a correction that needs to be acted upon based on loss of performance in the equipment, whether that's energy-based, whether that's mechanical, and then it provides guidance to the operators to make those corrections.
Okay, right. So that those analytics are provided to the guys on the ground, the managers of those properties.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was actually something that we learned through our journey. So GSAlink launched in 2013. We launched our national computerized maintenance management system in 2016. And looking back, we would have done things the other way around. We would have launched our NCMMS before GSAlink because, out of sight, out of mind is the typical saying, right? So what we came to learn through that process was that we really needed to integrate into the workflow of the operators, that it was important that the information found through GSAlink, that the sparks that are identified in an automatic way enters their workflow, so becomes part of their routine system that they check. And so we were able to integrate GSAlink to NCMMS in 2017. NCMMS is used throughout GSA. We have 1,500 buildings connected to it, and it's our main one-stop shop for facility management operations.
Okay, and now you've linked those two systems, or you did in 2017. Okay, and obviously it's 2022 now. Where are you guys in your journey at the moment?
So it's funny because like many other owner operators, we're all facing the challenge of adjusting to environment and climate demands, right? So at GSA, we're aiming for net zero building operations by 2045. We're really focused on making the federal footprint more sustainable and more cost efficient. And as a government landlord, we feel an obligation and a responsibility to lead in the purposeful adoption of emerging technologies and smart building technologies for our global economy and for the management of our buildings. So that's really focused on, I'll say, in all of the above, a yes and type of approach, really partnering across our organization to first electrify our buildings as a performance standard. We see that happening in other sectors, not just the building sector. We see that in the car sector as well. Second, focused on a deep energy retrofits, trying to lower and minimize our consumption to the extent practicable. That's been a focus for decades at this point, but that has to remain a focus for us. And then to get our buildings net zero ready, layer on renewables and use technology to help us achieve that goal. And our smart buildings component and analytics plays a key piece to that, because you can install a lot of technology, but you have to manage it well in order for it to be effective.
Absolutely. And I mean, in terms of, output, right? Obviously, you mentioned at the beginning, part of this is about measuring performance. What were the kind of key performance indicators that you guys, set down early as what you wanted to achieve, and have you achieved those?
Right, and it's funny because that we identified key performance indicators early on. We had three main key performance indicators, one of them being our total estimated cost impact, what we lovingly call our TECI, which is what you quoted at the onset of the introduction. We had analysis, a study done by Carnegie Mellon University back in 2019, and they did a review of our calculations for the total estimated cost impact. Their study was based on 60 of our buildings. So again, now we have 114 buildings on the platform, but at that time, they really looked at a subset of just 60. And what they found was for three different types of impacts, a total total TECI of 17 million. And they compared that to how our analytics were calculating at that time. And we were able to make refinements on our TECIs to have it even more reflective of the building conditions and what should be the calculation. So what they also found was that the payback for the system, so integration of new buildings, payback in less than 2 months, and that annual costs avoided per building were about 283,000. So again, it's been a very powerful system for us. We're using it more than just fault diagnostics at this point. We have a number of other use cases for it, including, we've run COVID reports, for example, looking at energy data before and after, really in this changing environment, and just hybrid work and other factors that have come to play at this point in building operations.
Okay, brilliant. And I guess we can put a link, actually, to that Carnegie Mellon report in the show notes. We'll definitely do that because I guess that was an independent study, right? That looked at all, and I think you said to me earlier that they've initially looked at 60 buildings, but that's been extended now.
They've looked at 60 buildings. We probably need another refresh to that.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah,
because we have some other, we have some other metrics as well, which were to my point of kind of evolving and changing. So we had a comfort metric as well that we are actually currently looking to revise to make it more reflective of the changing environment and smart sensors and other opportunities that we're pursuing at this time. And then deferred maintenance, which was really focused on if a spark happened in the system and the operator tried to act on it, but realized they needed funding to be able to address it, then it would need to go into deferred maintenance. Well, that's good information to have, that they weren't able to act on it without providing funding for a project. But now what we're doing is we're partnered with our portfolio management group so that they're in part of that conversation, and they're receiving the data and are at the front of being able to act on that need, as opposed to the local people, the local operators knowing that information where they may need additional support for actually obtaining the funding.
Great. If part of this as well, I know, is that you guys are really keen on sharing your learnings, right, about what you're doing, being an example for others that can can benefit from this technology. What are some of do you think of like the key lessons for companies who want to do smart buildings at scale?
I think the foundation is really important. Again, going back to ensuring that systems are open protocol systems, that we have flexibility in providers, that we have a converged network. We're not missing opportunities to bring more data in and looking across where analytics could be run across systems. Normalize data, making sure that we have a consistent naming convention for the data that comes in, because again, more data is going to come. Again, I mentioned smart sensors and other opportunities that we're looking at. So it's going to be important. It's very important to keep it consistent. Mm-hmm. And then secure. We're very partnered with our GSAIT counterparts. That's a very important part of our strategy, because again, it does us no good if we have all these great tools that all of a sudden can't be used based on bad actors or other impacts. So I think that the foundation is critically important, and also realizing that as you grow, you have to both balance upkeep of what you previously installed with bringing on new. And so we're seeing that now in the need for replacement of end-of-life advanced meters, continual modernizing building automation systems, all while we're looking to fill new solutions, like address new gaps that are in our needs. So we're currently in the process of deploying a unified user interface, as well as deploying smart sensors at scale for our portfolio. And again, it's very important that we get the foundations right, because as you add on, it's going to need to layer into the rest of the portfolio that's already been established.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think that's some excellent advice. I mean, in terms of open standards, you mentioned data normalization. Can you speak a little bit more about that? What kind of techniques or what kind of open standards are you guys using?
So for open standards, we have a great deal of our inventory is BACnet. We have my region previously used LAN. That's very little actually of our portfolio, but a great deal is BACnet. Then our smart buildings team is really focused on working with our counterpart. The way we're structured is we have our 11 regions, and within each region there's a smart buildings group or program manager. So our national team coordinates with them based on what is existing, the projects that are coming on board. We have a naming standard guide that is used for our projects. And so that is what we lean on, as well as our smart building overall program guide that provides broader guidance for how these projects are to be executed. And in 2001, actually, it's in December of 2001, our administrator signed our first Smart Buildings Directive, which further pushes alignment across our organization between our GSAIT partners, project delivery, and facility management to ensure that we're following our standards for each of our projects and our operations.
Great. So one of my last questions, I think, would be, it's fantastic. You've obviously done a lot of work on this, and it's quite mature now, right? Like this project's been going on for a long time. But I mean, if you're looking back, like, what would you do differently now if you were to start again?
Oh, if I were to look back, I think it goes back to that MCMMS comment that you don't know what you don't know until you're there. I think that we are in that age, though. Now I think we, at that time, missed the opportunity to look at at least our GSA world through the operator's lens, that they needed to have the information at the forefront. And right now, a priority for us is, ensuring that we are doing that we are entering an age of experience, both from the operator's perspective, facility manager's perspective, and more importantly, the occupant's perspective. So whereas at that time, we were really focused on the analytics, the data, now it's much more what helps the end user, what helps the occupant have a better experience, what makes it an easier day-to-day for a facility manager to partner well with our operations and maintenance contractors. And so to that end, again, we're focused on a unified user interface. Many of us have had that experience where we have many different systems we need to use day to day and all these passwords, et cetera, to have to keep up with. Again, out of sight, out of mind. So we're trying to bring all these systems together in one system, one view, single pane of glass is what it's often called as well, to better allow for, depending on the roles, to absorb the data, whether that's the local operator, the facility manager, energy managers, sustainability managers, asset managers, et cetera. So we're looking at different profiles and the different systems that contain the information that's important for their day-to-day activities. So that's what we would do different, is looking back, data is important, but really focusing on the need of the people. We build buildings for people, not just to be built. And so keeping that at the forefront, I think, will set us on a good path going forward.
Great point, because it sounds like you've got a lot to do in the future as well. You're not stopping now, are you? So you're going to be developing more. I mean, what does the future look like?
So actually right now, I'm glad you asked that. So we have an open RFI, our Green Proving Ground program. Center for Emerging Building Technologies is another part of the program under my group. And our Green Proving Ground has an open request for information. It closes on December 9th, and it's focused on helping us achieve net zero carbon. So really an emphasis on improving operating efficiency, promoting healthy workspaces, whole building electrification, carbon reduction, on-site generation, renewables. And then there's also a component to the electric fleet. I mean, we spend a lot of time day to day talking about electric vehicle supply equipment. We have our Applied Innovation Learning Laboratories, our AIL sites. First one kicked off back in August at the Denver Federal Center, looking to build on technologies that Green Proving Ground has identified and will continue to identify through these processes like the request for information that's open right now. So we have our Green Proving Ground that helps identify the emerging technologies, partnered with the Department of Energy. And so they do measurement and verification on these emerging technologies to help really support their emergence through the commercial sector where they prove effective. And so it's a pipeline for us at GSA. We see if they're successful, and then we're able to adopt them through our portfolio. And such is the case with our smart sensors and our UUI, for example. Those were testbed technologies within the GPG that are now being deployed through smart buildings.
Great. Well, I wish you luck with that. It sounds awesome. And
thank you.
I think just to say thank you so much for sharing these your experiences with us. I think that's going to be really interesting for people. And like I think in terms of scale, like there's not many people who are deploying, in so many buildings and across so many different types of building type as well. So it's really, really interesting to hear what work you guys have been doing. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Jim. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.